How do you control half a population without ever placing a guard outside every home? In Afghanistan, the Taliban found an answer, and it started with how officials judged the way a woman was dressed. In June 2026, morality officials in the city of Herat arrested at least 30 women. UNAMA said they were accused of improper hijab, though Taliban officials publicly denied the arrests were about clothing at all. When people gathered to protest, UNAMA confirmed at least one person was killed. The dress code was only one checkpoint. By the time this story is over, you'll understand how the rest of that system actually works. To understand Herat, you have to understand the rule behind it. In 2024, the Taliban's de facto authorities ratified the law on the promotion of virtue and prevention of vice. On paper, it's a morality code. In practice, it's closer to an operating system. It didn't invent restrictions on women. It codified many morality restrictions while separate decrees and directives remained in force, and gave one ministry broad power to enforce the law. That ministry is the Ministry for the Promotion of Virtue and Prevention of Vice. Its officials have stopped, questioned, warned, and detained women under this law. The law itself leaves broad room for interpretation and enforcement, and that gap between what's written and how one official chooses to apply it is where a lot of the fear in this story actually lives. Here's the important part. This isn't one rule that bans women from public life. It's dozens of smaller rules, spread across school, work, transport, clothing, speech, healthcare, even marriage. Individually, each one sounds almost bureaucratic. A dress code, a travel requirement, a staffing policy. Together, they form something else. A woman's presence in public is treated less like a right and more like conditional permission, one that can be withdrawn at almost any gate. These policies should not be treated as representative of Afghan culture or Islam as a whole. In January 2025, the Taliban's own acting deputy foreign minister, Sher Mohammad Abbas Stanekzai, publicly called on senior leadership to reopen girls' schools, saying the restrictions were not in line with Islamic Sharia law. What we're looking at is a set of political choices made by a government and enforced through ordinary institutions. Schools, employers, drivers, clinics, shops. So keep this phrase in mind because you're going to see it play out over and over. Every door has a condition. The first gate closes before a girl even becomes an adult. Girls in Afghanistan have been barred from secondary education since September 2021. A year later, women were excluded from universities. Then, in December 2024, the Taliban were reported to have issued a directive blocking women from medical training, including nursing and midwifery. In a country where many women can only access appropriate care from female staff, that doesn't just end individual careers. It severely restricts the pipeline producing the country's next nurses, midwives, and doctors who can actually see female patients. UNICEF has tried to put a number on what this costs. Their estimate is that Afghanistan could lose more than 20,000 female teachers and over 5,000 female health workers by 2030 if current restrictions on education and employment continue. Between 2022 and 2024 alone, the number of female teachers in basic education already dropped by more than 9%. Think about what that actually removes. Not just a diploma. It removes the version of a woman's life where she becomes a doctor, a teacher, an engineer, someone with her own income and her own professional identity. By the time a girl in Afghanistan reaches the age where independence would normally start to become possible, that path has already been closed for years. This is the part of the system that's easiest to miss, because it doesn't look like control in the moment. It looks like an empty classroom. But an empty classroom today can become an understaffed hospital tomorrow. Say a woman finishes school before the bans reached her. She still hits the next gate the moment she tries to work. Women have been removed from most government roles. Sweeping bans have also closed off specific sectors, including national and international NGOs and beauty salons, narrowing where women can still legally work. and since September 7, 2025, Afghan women, including UN staff and contractors, have been prevented from entering United Nations premises across the country. UN Women's 2024 survey estimated that only about 1 in 4 Afghan women was working or looking for work, compared with close to 9 in 10 men. But here's the part that makes this system so effective. Even in the sectors that remain technically open to women, the job itself can become impossible without a single new law being written. That's because of the next gate: movement. Under the current rules, many journeys require a mahram, a male relative, to accompany a woman. In some documented cases, drivers have been told not to carry a woman traveling alone, and officials have visited specific clinics and shops instructing them to turn away women without a male relative. This isn't applied identically everywhere. Enforcement varies by province and by official. But a woman doesn't need a nationwide ban to lose access to work. She just needs to be unable to get there, in enough places often enough. This is the pattern worth noticing. The authorities don't have to ban everything directly. They only have to make enough ordinary people, including drivers, employers, and shopkeepers, responsible for enforcing the rule. Once that happens, control doesn't require an official on every street. It only requires everyone else to be a little afraid of what happens if they don't comply. The next gate is the one that made international news in Herat. The 2024 morality law requires women to fully cover their body and face outside the home. The harder part is how unevenly the standard gets applied. What counts as proper covering in one province, or with one official, might not count in another, which means a woman can try in good faith to comply and still be judged to have failed. Whatever the intention, that uncertainty becomes a form of control. If the line were fixed, women could learn it and follow it. Because the line moves, a woman has to assume she might be stopped no matter what she does. And for a lot of women, the safest response to an unclear rule is simply not to go outside. But the control doesn't stop at what a woman wears. The same law treats a woman's voice as something to be concealed outside the home under specified circumstances, including restrictions on singing or reciting, where unrelated men might hear her. Female journalists face extra barriers just doing their jobs, from interviews to travel. And in 2024, an order went further still. It restricts new windows that overlook spaces used by neighboring women, and it orders certain existing views to be blocked. Think about it. Not just what a woman says, not just what she wears, the literal window she might be seen through. This is where the system stops looking like a dress code and starts looking like something closer to architecture. The effect extends far beyond modesty. It reduces how much of a woman's existence registers in public space at all. You'd think, at least, that home might be the one place outside this system. It isn't. In May 2026, the Taliban published Decree Number 18, its code on judicial separation. According to UNAMA's analysis, a man retains a unilateral right to divorce his wife under the decree, while a woman has to petition on narrow, specific grounds just to be granted a separation. UNAMA warned that the decree's language on consent could be read in ways that treat silence as consent in certain circumstances involving underage marriage. Put plainly, everywhere else in this story, a woman's public life has been made conditional. Now a legal process inside her own home has narrowed too. If school, work, movement, and visibility are already restricted, a woman's ability to leave a marriage becomes one more door that isn't equally open to her. That's the shape of the system so far. Classroom, office, street, now the home. And there's one more layer, bigger than any single gate, still to come. Here's a consequence that receives less attention. This system doesn't only cost women, it's starting to cost the entire country. UN Women's 2024 estimate put the number of young Afghan women excluded from education, employment, or training at nearly 8 in 10. UNICEF has estimated that restrictions on girls' education and women's employment cost Afghanistan around $84 million a year, a number that will keep climbing as the missing teachers and health workers of 2030 fail to materialize. And the organizations trying to fill the gap are running out of resources to do it. A 2026 survey by UN Women found that nearly 3/4 of women-led organizations in Afghanistan had their funding cut in 2025. 2/3 said they had 6 months of funding left or less. These are the same organizations delivering informal education, healthcare, and protection services in gaps created by restrictions and weakened public services. So the system built to control women is starting to quietly weaken services the entire population needs. Fewer female health workers means fewer patients treated. Fewer female teachers weaken education services for children. Fewer working women means a smaller economy for everyone living in it. A country doesn't restrict half its potential workforce and its future medical staff without eventually feeling that everywhere else too. It would be easy to end this story there, with a list of closed doors, but that would leave out something true and important. Afghan women have not simply accepted this. Girls have been excluded from formal secondary school, but in limited locations, and under considerable risk, community-based and informal learning continues. Women have been pushed out of much formal employment, but home-based businesses and women-led organizations keep operating, even as international funding cuts keep weakening them. Public protest carries real danger, and people in Herat still stood up against the June 2026 arrests anyway. That resistance has faces attached to it. Mazi Hamidi, an Afghan taekwondo champion now living in exile in France under police protection, has spoken publicly about Afghan women being erased from public life, unseen and unheard. Accounts like hers are a reminder that behind every statistic in this story is someone still fighting to be seen. There isn't a simple policy fix waiting around the corner. In July 2025, the International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants against 2 named Taliban leaders, Hibatullah Akhundzada and Abdul Hakim Haqqani, alleging the crime against humanity of gender persecution. These are allegations, not convictions. The warrants matter for accountability, but they have not changed daily enforcement on the ground. Meanwhile, women-led organizations continue meeting urgent needs with funding that keeps shrinking. That's not a hopeful ending. It's an honest one. The system is real, the cost to the whole country is real, and so is the resistance to it. None of those things cancel each other out. Go back to Herat, June 2026. At least 30 women. Alleged dress code violations. A protest. At least 1 death confirmed by the UN. That single incident holds the entire pattern. Every door has a condition, and Herat shows what can happen when officials decide one of those conditions has been broken. So, back to the question we opened with. How do you control half a population without a guard outside every home? You put one at every door she might try to open instead. The school, the office, the taxi, the clinic, the market, the courtroom, even the window of her own house. They didn't need to lock every Afghan woman inside. They just made sure that almost every ordinary door out required a permission she might never be given.